when the aviation industry is going to recover and when we can expect that recruitments will start happening. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the latest researches related to the topic of when the aviation industry is going to recover. And I also will be telling to you why the airline employees will be working or are currently working for a lower salary. Therefore, I invite you all to stay tuned until the last minute of this video. And you also might want to click the subscribe button for all the videos that are coming on my YouTube channel over here, elaborating the topic of how to become a cabin crew, how to build up a successful career in the aviation industry and sustain and grow in the same. For those of you that are new on my YouTube channel, a very warm welcome on board. My name is Julia George and I used to fly for Qatar Airways for 10 years, where I have resigned from my last work position as a cabin service director. I'm currently studying aviation management master program at Wildau Institute of Applied Science in Berlin. Let's start. The most important question for all the aspiring cabin crew, as well as the ones who have been redundant, laid off, for everyone who wants to join aviation, and I do belong in this group as well, is to know when the recruitments will restart, when you will be called back to rejoin, and finally the question that bothers literally all of us is to know when the aviation industry will finally recover. And I do believe that when we look deep into this question, it is super relevant to look at the airline industry statistics and some of the growth projections for the year 2021, for this year. And there will be some numbers that I'm going to mention. And if you pay attention to what I'm going to say, I think that we can bring up a good conclusion at the end of this discussion. If we take into consideration the aviation industry, or if we look at the aviation industry as a separate country in the world together as one, in terms of the gross domestic product, then the aviation industry will be ranking 20th if it was measured as a country. Now, the International Air Transport Association, or IATA, we talk a lot about IATA, or I talk a lot about IATA on my social media platforms. And when you become a cabin crew for the airline that you would want to work for, you will learn a lot about IATA, their standards. It's very important for the cabin crew role and also for the entire aviation industry. Mentioning IATA, they are expecting that this year the net airline industry losses are going to be 47.7 billion US dollars. They say that the net profit margin will be of minus 10.4%. Now, they see this as an improvement. Why? Because if we compare this fact to the net losses that were in 2020, the net losses in the year 2020 or last year were 126.4 billion US dollars, or a net profit margin of minus 33.9%. So we can definitely see that the year of 2021 is actually a year where losses are a little or much less than 2020. And if you do remember, in one of my live sessions, I did present to you a research from a data analysis, but in that research we spoke about the passenger numbers and when the aviation industry will recover, and this comparing to that research of the IATA analysis indeed makes sense. Now, we have to have in mind that this crisis is longer, is deeper than anyone could have ever expected. COVID crisis, as mentioned, is not something that humanity and that the industry remembers. In the past, we had the financial crisis, we had other pandemics as well, but they did not last as long as COVID-19. The losses, they say, this latest data available says that the losses will be reduced from the last year, from the year 2020, but the pain from this crisis is going to be increased, unfortunately. Now, there is an optimism when it comes to the domestic market, where aviation's hallmark resilience is demonstrated by the rebounds in the markets without internal travel restrictions. and we are witnesses of those travel bubbles. We have actually seen this when it comes to the recruitments. Low-cost carriers are the ones who have showed up an initiative and a need. Actually, it was a need. There are recruitments happening in the domestic air travel, in the low-cost carrier sector. We talked about the low cost carriers recruiting at the very same moment, and a link of that video where I spoke to you about the low cost carriers recruiting and how they are rebounding and they're growing at this moment. I'm gonna leave it in the description box below this video. Please have a look, and therefore you will connect easily the dots and of the things that I'm mentioning over here. This year, there are actually 2.4 billion passengers that have been estimated to travel as a number in the research that these passengers would want to fly. However, despite this estimation and taking into consideration the other factors that there are still government restrictions, the forecasts are saying that the airlines will burn further $81 billion of cash. All these numbers, ladies and gentlemen, are available on the internet, and I do believe it is very relevant that we talk about these numbers in order to know where aviation industry stands at the moment. This is IATA research, and IATA data consists of the airlines worldwide, of the aviation industry worldwide. Therefore, I do believe that knowing about numbers like this and following statistics, it is crucial for you as a candidate to know when you can expect that things will come towards the end, or when the recruitments will be starting soon. Because the precise answer of this question is not something that can be answered from this date starting onwards. We are continuing with recruitments. Now, some estimation points to the start of the industry recovery are saying that this can happen later this year, 2021. In the best case scenario, we are all hoping that end of this year we can see bigger improvements in the numbers that we have mentioned, or I have mentioned earlier. The International Air Transport Association, IATA, continues to urge the governments to have plans in place so that no time will be lost when it comes to restarting the sector when the epidemiological situation allows for reopening of the borders. Very often, if you turn on the news, you would be seeing and hearing news about what is the epidemiological situation in your own country, and this is something that the International Air Transport Association is very closely looking at. And when I have saying related to all these things that I have mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, knowing when your own country will remove the travel restrictions or will be free of the so-called famous lockdown, that's the time you can expect that the airlines will start flying to your country. When I say the airlines, I mean on the international air travel, not on the domestic one. We have to make a distinguish between what is the domestic air travel, what is the international air travel, and that's the time we can be expecting improvements. And I do believe when it comes to this question that we can expect improvements of the government restrictions somewhere, as mentioned earlier in this video, end of this year. Generally speaking, most governments have not yet provided clear indications of the benchmarks that they will use to safely guide people back with their travel freedom. In the meanwhile, approximately 88 million jobs that are supported by the aviation industry are at risk. And when the aviation industry decides that it's time to restart this effectively, that will certainly energize the travel and the tourism sector, as well as will certainly energize the wider economy. And those 88 million jobs that I have mentioned earlier that are at risk will no longer be there. Now, at this time, it is absolutely critical that we learn all of us as a humanity, irrespective from where you're watching this video, it is absolutely crucial that we learn how to live safely, we learn how to work and travel, and hopefully we are going to come to a point where the virus will become endemic, and when we can remove the masks and live the normal life. We also must understand that governments at this moment are turning their focus on something called risk management in order to protect the livelihoods as well as to protect our lives. And this is something that they do alongside with the capabilities. We are witnessing that we have countries, for example, like Germany, that has a strong economy, good political system and environment, people trust in the legislation system. On the other hand, we have countries like my country where I'm born, Macedonia, which the political system is quite not stable. The health system is also something that we cannot talk and be happy about as Macedonians, and there are a lot of things which are limiting the country to do the risk management properly in order to protect the livelihoods as well as to protect the lives of the people. The entire aviation industry will come out from this crisis, that is for sure, but experts or analysts say that the entire aviation industry will come out from the crisis financially very, very weakened. Cost contaminated and reductions whenever possible will be the key to restore this financial health of the aviation industry, if I may say. That is why the future cabin crew job opportunities might be at the risk of being less paid or to be offered lower salary packages. At this moment, this is what currently is happening. I can take Qatar Airways, for instance. The current cabin crew that are flying for lower salary packages. And this is not because the airline hates their employees, it's because they need to restore the financial health of the company. This containing and reduction in costs are at the moment and more in future will be the top of the mind of the managements for all the airlines in the world. And you also often discuss on the internet about voluntary work, cabin crew cleaning the aircraft and stuff like that. There will be a lot of modules that will be presented in order to do that cost cutting. So be ready, ladies and gentlemen, and be prepared. My understanding says that the domestic market will improve faster than the international travel, as I have also mentioned earlier and previously. And previously I have also said that the overall passenger number are expected to reach, or the estimation was expected to reach 2.4 billion for this year, for 2021. Now this is certainly an improvement. The increasement in the passenger number in this year, 2021, is bigger. Why? If we compare to 2020 to last year, the statistics says that there were 1.8 billion passengers who traveled last year, but that is actually well below the number of 2000 in the year 2009, where without the pandemic in the year 2009 we had a peak of 4.5 billion passengers traveling in the aviation industry using the airline services. So I wouldn't say that it's bad. 2.4 billion for 2021 is good. We are definitely looking at the period where year to year the passenger number will be growing. I also want to say a few words in this video which are related to the cargo sector. I do know that you guys as a cabin crew aspirants are not maybe interested so much about the cargo sectors. Nevertheless, there are candidates who would want to shift, or current cabin crew who would want to shift to different departments. So it's worth to mention a few words about the cargo sector. The cargo has actually outperformed the passenger business throughout the crisis. This trend is expected actually to continue throughout this year, 2021, and the demand for cargo is expected to actually grow. This puts the cargo business in a positive territory compared to the pre-crisis level. Why? The total cargo volumes are expected to reach 63.1 million tons in this year, in the year 2021. That is nearly at the pre-crisis peak, because in 2019, in the pre-crisis peak, the cargo was actually 63.5 million tons, which have occurred, if I'm not mistaken, was it 2018 or 2019. Nevertheless, we see that the year 2021, the cargo sector completely doesn't suffer or have reached the pre-crisis levels. If we talk about the aviation recovering, we have to talk about something called revenues and earnings, because here is where the salary for the cabin crew comes from. The aviation industry revenues are expected to be total of 458 billion US dollars. That is just 55% of the 838 billion dollars which were generated in the year 2019, but represents 23% growth of the 372 billions that were generated in the year 2020. Here are calculated the passengers and the cargo revenues together, but I don't think that we should go when it comes to revenues separately, as the airlines financial accounting stuff doesn't do that. They have the revenue which is generated from the boat sector, from the passenger sector, and from the cargo sector, and then later on they are doing their cost coverage, and last but not least the return on investment, if any. When it comes to something called net losses, you might think that the Middle Eastern airlines are number one in the lowest net losses. Because you might think that they are in a rich country, you know, and the Middle East is in the Middle East, the countries, they don't suffer. Well, that in fact it's not true. When it comes to net losses, they are number three. Why I'm saying they're number three, I will come very closely to your explanation. When it comes to the Middle Eastern carriers, it is worth to say that they will definitely benefit from the rapid vaccination rates on the home markets. They will progress. However, we have to have in mind that there are still a lot of travel restrictions of many of the routes to the emerging economies that these Middle Eastern airlines are serving through their Gulf hub airports, to their Gulf hub connections. So they might want to, no matter how much they want to fly, you know, they have the gas and the money and everything. They want to fly to London, to Paris, all over the world. However, these countries still have imposed the travel restrictions, and they're simply not allowing. Therefore, they are number three in their net losses. The first one are in less net losses have been seen in North America. The second less net losses have been seen in Asia, and the third one are the Middle Eastern countries. Net losses in the year 2021 are forecasted to be minus 13.8% of the revenue, which is a reduction from the minus 28.9% revenue that was in the year 2020. So we also see over here an improvement. Ladies and gentlemen, while the airline industry is preparing for the future of the aviation, because right now you and me and all of us, we want to know when the aviation industry is going to recover, but what they do at the moment is that they are preparing as an industry for the future, and it is imperative that we make our contribution to this progress of this industry. And you most probably you are asking yourself how you can make that contribution to the progress of the industry. Now the airlines, municipalities, and our economic growth depends on what we do at the moment, what you do, what I do, and stuff like that. And I'll come to the point of why I think this is important. Knowledge is the key factor today. Excrewnextcrew will continue to share with you the latest relevant information and knowledge on this topic. Nevertheless, at this moment it's very important. What do you study? If you study, and if you want to be in aviation, please choose to study a topic that will help and will contribute towards the progress of the aviation industry. If you want to be in the same, if you're working, make sure that you are gaining those set of new skills and you're strengthening your old skills on a daily basis. It is not important what job you're having at the moment. For instance, I work in a healthcare system. At the moment, I work in a hospital and I'm a snore lab assistant. However, I perform duties which are related a lot to the skills for the aviation industry, and I try to straighten my skills and I try to gain new skills on a daily basis. As mentioned, knowledge is the key. That is why I'm engaged in a process of my continuous education with this, and I'm doing my master's studies in aviation management. I'm not saying that you also supposed to do the studies in aviation management. However, use this time effectively to learn about topics if you want to be successful in the aviation industry in a couple of years, because what you do now at this moment and how you use this time, it will be reflecting on the next 3 years. After 3 years, you and me, with God's will, we all be healthy, happy, knowledgeable, and strong. We're gonna sit down another video and we're gonna talk and we're gonna remind each other of what did we do in these 3 years and how much we will grow. We have grown actually. Therefore, thank you very much for being part of excrewnextcrew, family of knowledgeable people, family of people who are aiming to be healthy, happy, knowledgeable, and strong. And I'm gonna be seeing you very soon in another video. Last but not the least, I invite you all to please click the subscribe button. This is how you help this community to grow, and share all your comments below this video. Thank you very much and have a nice day.